Oh, we're on Twitch and YouTube, so hello everybody there. We're getting ready to go with Facebook, on that. Sure we're on Twitch? They usually fire off before YouTube does. It's not coming up on this end. I'm not doubting you. But it usually takes longer to fire off on YouTube. As we get ready to rock and roll on here, we're just checking all the stuff. Seeing if anybody knows some good quarter-inch to 3.5. That funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 on Newswire on Facebook, Twitch, and the evil YouTube, as we do that each and every day, coming back and forth on that. Going back and forth on this, if anybody knows of why, these are quarter-inch to 3.5 millimeter adapters. And we have to use them like to plug these for like headphones and stuff, but mainly the soundboard stuff has the big ones, and you got to adapt it down for most of the stuff. But I've had the hell of a time at getting ones that will work on both sides, or where you plug it in where you can hear both sides of it. You got to just barely have it in there to where it works, and then it goes out and stuff. When you plug it full in, it shuts off one side. If anybody's got a solution to that, please message, call, something, because it's irritating as all hell to go through this, but we'll figure it out. If you know a solution to save us some time, it would be absolutely fantastic. Lots of news and stuff going on. We'll have Kelly Victory on in a little bit. Teachers! Now the big excuse is we're not going back to school unless we have free childcare. In other words, there is no such thing as free. It is you're going to pay for their child care now on top of their gold-plated salaries and platinum benefits. Before we will zoom back into class while your kids sit there and stare at another screen. Arturo. They tried invading his house, you won't believe it. Vancouver restaurant, they tried invading that. $500,000 mask contest, and guess who pays? Vaccine passports, we'll have an update on the squatter house in Riverside, and a lot of more going up. But the first story of the day is a local story. Flip up number 4, please. It's from Riverside Police Department. You're seeing the aforementioned victim and suspect going on. Transient arrest and fatal stabbing of a woman in Riverside this morning just before 7:30 a.m. Saturday, April 3rd, 2021. The City of Riverside's Public Communications Center received several calls of a woman down on Golden Avenue just north of Stonewall Drive, the La Sierra neighborhood of Riverside. When police officers arrived and paramedics with the Riverside Fire Department arrived, they located a woman bleeding from her abdomen area, suffering from stab wounds. Victim was taken to a local hospital, but unfortunately succumbed to her injuries and pronounced deceased. The victim has been identified as 64-year-old Kay Chi Meng of Riverside. Shortly after, our dispatch center began receiving calls from neighbors reporting a transient woman walking through yards and appearing suspicious. Officers checked the nearby area and safely detained the woman. She is identified as Darlene Stephanie Montoya, 23-year-old transient from Monterey Park in Los Angeles County. Detectives with the robbery homicide unit, along with specialists of the forensic units, responded and assumed the investigation. They have assisted by the Riverside County Coroner's preliminary investigation revealed Miss Meng was walking her two small dogs along Golden Avenue this morning when she was randomly confronted and attacked by the transient woman. During the attack, Miss Meng was stabbed and the suspect fled the scene. Detectives termed Darlene Montoya was the attacker and placed her under arrest. This is the key spot. The suspect was arrested by Riverside police officers earlier this week on Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. After she attacked a woman with a skateboard on Tyler Avenue on the 91 freeway overpass. Officers arrested and booked Miss Montoya into jail for assault with a deadly weapon. But due to the current emergency bail schedule during COVID-19 pandemic, she was released on a notice to appear citation. Lots of things on this one. Transient, stabbing a woman to death in Riverside while she's walking her dogs. Just a few days before she had been arrested for attacking somebody else in the area, was let out over COVID. They couldn't have scripted this any better to see what the tragedy of where our public officials are using the excuse of COVID to empty our jails, let people pour across the border, while locking us down, stealing our money at the point of a gun, then giving it to whatever. $700,000 condo units for so-called homeless. Look at Rusty Bailey, the former mayor of Riverside, is in this homeless scam. Wouldn't say what his salary was, didn't know when he offered his or when he said he wasn't rerunning. BS, Rusty, you're not stupid. You're getting big bucks by the new way to screw you over in this whole transient thing. Not only that, they're making your streets unsafe to walk your dogs up the street without being attacked. Police arrest them. She was probably out before the arresting officer finished the damn paperwork and filed the report and wrote his report. Ms. Montoya was probably out on the street on the 30th after the first attack. Now, the three strikes law might not have been 100% perfect, but it was 98.7%. It got rid of most of this stuff. 3 strikes and you're out. We didn't have to deal with that. These ones that are committing crimes. They had the one in L.A., where the homeless guy who had a car drags one guy down the street 200 yards. This stuff is going to keep happening more and more and more. And I want to take you back to Friday when I was on with Eddie George. And I said, we'll profile the back in about the mid-90s. Tony Villar Jr., a.k.a. Antonio Villaraigosa, was the mayor of Los Angeles at the time. Bill Bratton was the chief. Their way to clean up the crime, and they just emptied the jails. I mean, get them off the budget, empty the jails, yada, yada, yada. Send them up to the IE. And where did they land? San Bernardino, Moreno Valley, Hemet. You look at the drug, the crime, the human trafficking problems, and on and on and on it goes. You look at the economic development and you look at the growth in budgets, the health of their cities, how they've grown. You can take the cities that have cleaned up their act or not let this happen, and they are way farther ahead than cities like Moreno Valley, Paris, and Hemet. I'm not saying it is, but I'm going to say the overwhelming odds are they probably rousted her. She's from Monterey Park up in Los Angeles County, and now she's out here. Since they're having a big cleanup campaign because things are getting hot in LA over this, for what, 50,000 homeless just running around, pissing and crapping in the streets, throwing needles, having sex in the middle of the street, and on and on and on it goes. I would bet you dimes to donuts they suggested to Miss Montoya, we better not see you in LA County anymore. We might even give you a one-way bus ticket out. This is the future. Look at what you did to Riverside City Council. I mean, you got a bunch of UCR nutcase left-wing loons in there. Now, I'm not going to defend some of the others that were in there because they're, Riverside, City of Riverside County is at a 100-year deal of corruption of, the old establishment. But you don't replace them with those that are going to put the policies in, continue them, that's going to degrade our communities, our neighborhoods, our homes, on top of that. Finally, there is some good news, and I just want to hit this one on this. Is Fox 11. The couple that bought the home for $560,000 and was 15 months out of that, finally they got the squatter out. But what I didn't read in the article, and just flip it up there a little bit, please. What I didn't read in the article is police officers or law enforcement, as they said, our hands are tied, helping them out in any way on this. They finally got a locksmith, basically busted into the home, per se, or as I read it, and the guy finally left that was squatting for 15 months. Again, is this what you want in your communities? Going back and forth on that. That's what you have to look forward to as we move forward on all this stuff. It's a crying shame that we do this. Now we're going to highlight some of our brethren north of the border. This is Arturo Pawlowski. He has a church up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The Goon Squad is at his place, trying to shut down his church or arrest him or whatever. This is Arturo Pawlowski when the Goon Squad of government is getting ready to coming through the door, invading his property. Here we go.
Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out.
Okay, I just
Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out. Immediately go out and don't come back.
Okay.
I don't want to talk to you. Not a word. Out of this property, immediately out. I don't care what you have to say. Out! Out! Out of this property, you Nazis! Out! Out! Gestapo is not allowed here. Immediately, Gestapo is not allowed. Out!
Please leave.
Do you understand English? Get out of this property. Go. So go. Go. And don't come back without a warrant. Out, Nazi. Out. Out. You understand? Nazis are not welcome here. Out.
There are
And don't
the
come back without
Nazis
a warrant.
and Gestapo leaving Arturo's church after he stood up to them and called them out. Immediately, he told them, get the hell out. Well, maybe he didn't say hell, but they tried with the this and that. And I'm not sure what the Canadian Constitution is, but as he said, if you don't have a warrant in the United States, off the property. You can stand out there on the sidewalk. But Arturo didn't let them intimidate him, BS him. Not only that, he gave them a lesson. I love that. Do you understand English? Get out, you Gestapo, you Nazis. You are not allowed in here. If you keep pushing people's buttons, they may push back. If you keep overstepping your bounds, if you are a true peace, pull up number 4, please. I want to look at the guys that are walking out the door, and you see peace officer on the back of their shirts or the back of their vest. A public health inspector, as you see on the lady who's front who was leading the charge. If you're a true peace officer, if you are a true public health inspector, you will not be harassing any citizens. You are there to keep the peace, not to serve the Gulag masters or the Gestapo or the Nazis. And if you think that, I mean, we gotta see if we can get this guy on the air. I think look in the YouTube thing on that, Jesse, on that one. You think he's got an email address that we can do that. We need to get this guy on the air. Because, I mean, as I understand the story, they've been harassing this guy for a long time. And he said, what is it that you're, what is it you want? What is it you think's going on? What's the violation? It's like, no, da. It's kind of like the Tin Horn restaurant guy. We had to find him too. They were harassing him down in Burbank because he's trying to keep his restaurant open. What's the violation? On and on and on. You know, if it comes to this, I mean, you're going to be at the point of it's not going to be looking good. Now, this is in Vancouver. Again, the Gestapo, Vancouver Coastal Health, or whatever the hell they're trying to do, or enforce, or come up with, rolls into a restaurant in Vancouver and tries to pull the same stunt. So here's what they encountered when they when the Gestapo from the Vancouver Health Department rolled in there. Here we go.
Right on the door there. Trespass? Okay, can you understand what you're doing here? You're trespassing on my private property? You don't agree? Okay, all right.
Well, we are. You're going to ask to leave. Get out. 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 Get out.
The health inspectors there, or whatever, the Gestapo probably made a wise choice. Whether there's probably 25, 30, 50 people in that restaurant. I love it when they come, well, we're from the health department, and they read out their cards and this and that. And she said, I love the lady who's holding her baby, probably because she, because of this whole thing, can't afford to get a sitter or whatever, young child. She says, yeah, I'm a woman, and I'm the boss here. Like, what the hell do you want? Yo-ho. And then they start with the this and the that and the 2-4s and the wherefores and stuff. And I gotta love the people of Vancouver. They start saying, hey, just get out. Get the hell out. It's at least gives me some hope. There are people that have a backbone and a spine and a little bit of conscience left. Because if you don't, you're going to get run over. It's a plain, simple fact. And run over, we've been done too much in this last year. Want to duck this one in just so and this is in Politico. Probably not part of the vast right-wing conspiracy, as Her Highness Hilarista says. California teachers' latest demand, free child care. Teachers unions across California say the need for educator child care has been a problem before the pandemic. So what are the teachers going to do? They're going to say, well, we ain't going to educate your kids or do that, but we're going to jack the rate up to $25,000 to $30,000 a copy on that from $20,000 while you pay for our child care, whether we show up or not. As it is in Politico, the demand is salt in the wounds for parents who struggle with distance learning at home amid intense reopening negotiations that have dragged on for over a year. Now it goes on and on. We've had Cicely Myers-Cruz, the racist head of UTLA, on here many times and all that other stuff, going on back and forth on the deal. This is what they're doing. Teachers, I don't want to debate that. Your representatives are saying this. They're hijacking us, the taxpayer, paying your salaries while you guys continually get more money, more benefits for less work, or let's say less results. That I don't think is going to be anybody's question. Are you going to have enough guts like Arturo or the crowd in the Vancouver restaurant to start standing up to this crap? Because as you could do, and I hope we can get Arturo on the air. You're near a story of why he said this stuff. Some people have actually lived under communism, totalitarianism, collectivism rule. And I ain't heard of one of them say, oh, that was a bull barrel of laughs. We just had greater guns. We came in here. We came to America because it was so good there. We wanted to see what a little bit of actually hearing or suffering. Yeah, who's ever on? We just got a couple minutes, but coming on that. But yeah, it is. So we only got a couple minutes. Who's on?
Well, I just want to let you know I went over to get my paper, form to fill out for being on flood control at City Hall. 700 form, and I get to the door and the guard's there, and he says, You can't have anything in there. You have to call and make an appointment with the city to go get a 700 form. So the city's doing the same thing as the school board. You used to be able, at least you could go in and talk to the reception and get your forms to fill out. They won't even do that now.
Yeah, you can't. If they were okay, so we got all these COVID restrictions and stuff and yada yada yada. Can say, okay, wait outside. I will go get you or find out or get you a 7 or find somebody that can assist you to get you your stuff. No, it's get the crap out of here. We will get to it when we feel like it.
That's right. Sitting out there, No, communism is already here. That's what I told the guard. Ain't this good? You have to be a communist. You have to make a phone call to get a form to fill out, to volunteer to help this good old California state. They're all sitting over there giggling and laughing, eating coffee and donuts and having fun.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, they're twisting this thing. The so-called slave masters, the communists, the ones that want to do the ruling, are twisting this stuff up. I mean, they're milking this COVID thing. I mean, more than the golden cow.
Right. So so much for and you knew what happened yesterday. We didn't have no crowds around up and down Cottonwood traffic Sunday morning, did we?
No.
Nobody in the parking lot. Wonder why. Every year we've been there, the streets are plugged full up and down both sides, and the whole 5 acres over there is parked with cars. Nothing.
Yeah, they let maybe 100 people in or so to outside to
outside,
to have their Easter services.
And this went on from way late at night until all day.
Yeah, they'd put 1,000 people in there if they put a nickel in, like at 7 or 8 shifts a day on there.
Yeah, right.
At St. Christopher's Church, that's on the corner of Cottonwood and Paris Boulevard. And again, where's the pastors? Well, there's a few, but a whole hell of a lot more of them need to start standing up, or you're going to be you're going to be the ones that are going to be on the outside looking in.
Well, churches now, they don't understand. They've just been communized because the communists say you can't listen to your church. So much for freedom of religion on our Constitution.
That and everything else are going down the tubes.
I'll let you go
on that. But yeah, no, we are. There isn't. It is. And again, all of you, teachers, pastors of your churches, leaders in your community, police, firefighters, I'm making the plea. Hey, stand up with us. Stand up with us. Not only when you're doing your job, but after you clock out, then it's your time. Your government cannot, according to what my understanding of the Constitution, my layman's understanding, is they cannot control your political speech once you sign out at 5 o'clock or wherever. Once you walk out of the halls of the school, of the fire department, of the city hall, or the police station, once you step off the curb and get on that road, and then you're a Joe Private citizen again, and you did not give away your First Amendment rights to free speech. You might give them away while you're on the clock.
1 minute
on that. Hey, you're on the gas early on this one. On that, no, you do not give up your free. When you become a teacher, a police officer, a firefighter, city, county, government employee, you do not give up your First Amendment rights. You may be able to control your speech while you are on the job.
30 seconds.
Check out what you can do when you're not off the job. You're still an American citizen, and you're still protected by the United States Constitution so far, but let's not let that slip away, because if we do, we're in deep Bandini, and we don't want to be there.
All right, here we go. 10 seconds. SupplyKing.com.
OEM Supply King. We got it!
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday at 5:30 on the Mighty Met, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Join your vast video audience on IE Newswire at Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Going back and forth, we had a lot of stuff to cover on that. The transient that killed a woman walking her dog in Riverside. The transient who'd been arrested a couple days before, catch and release because of COVID. Now, a resident of Riverside is no longer walking the streets or on this earth on the top side of the grass, almost exclusively over this COVID stuff and the crisis we're creating. Teachers trying to hijack more money out of you and me, saying now we demand free childcare. No, you're not demanding free childcare. You're demanding the rest of us pay for it. When the average teacher's salary and benefits in California is north of $100,000 a year. Average. That means 50% make more than that. So, for 9 months of work, if you translate that to a full year's salary, that's over $125,000 a year, way north of that and going higher because they're using COVID to hijack us, the taxpayers, and kill your kids' education. It's just that simple. We had Arturo Poliski, the great pastor from a church up in Calgary, Canada, who, when the Nazis came to invade his property, he said, "Get the hell out, you Gestapo Nazis. We ain't taking this." On top of that, and if you don't think that, Canadians got some, you know what. The Vancouver restaurant, the same one as boss lady with her child on her, and they come up and say, "Oh, well, we're from the government." "Oh, well, I'm a mom and the boss." And then the people started chanting 40, 50, 7, "Get out," and they turned and ran their tails. It's absolutely incredulous what's going on here. Each and every day, this stuff keeps getting worse, worse, and worse. Of that. But guys like that, guys and gals like that up in Canada that are turning back the officials and saying no, hell no, are a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, and give me a little hope on this. But as we usually do, we have in my opinion, not only the finest physician in the world, but the extreme, most accurate and profound expert on COVID-19 and probably any other subject, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Hey, always happy to be with you, Roy. Crazy times continue, however. We just survived our second Easter in full-blown COVID lockdown. Who would have thought that?
It's absolutely incredulous. And that's kind of a segue what I'm gonna play. We're gonna do a couple clips on this because the second part of it is that. But as I've said, they're not letting loose of this going for us. This is Michael Osterholm, an epidemiologist. He's on Meet the Press. Armageddon is coming just around the corner, according to him. Here we go.
Well, thank you, Chuck, for having me again. And well, first of all, let me say that at this time, we really are in a Category 5 hurricane status with regard to the rest of the world. At this point, we will see in the next 2 weeks the highest number of cases reported globally since the beginning of the pandemic. In terms of the United States, we're just at the beginning of this surge. We haven't even really begun to see it yet. We have had, over the course of the past year, surges of cases that occur in the upper Midwest, the Northeast.
So there you have it. They're already setting us up for the next wave coming through of this. And I bet you the way he's setting this up, stratospheric, the end of the world's coming. The next set of lockdown restrictions are going to make the last ones look like a cakewalk, Dr. Kelly Victory.
No, I think you're right. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this and talking about it with other physicians and scientists who clearly understand that this has nothing to do anymore with a virus per se, but it is all about control and furthermore, frankly, about what has become the means, the end in itself, which is mass vaccination. They've really lost sight now, Roy, of the original goal, which was and should always be to limit the number of significant illnesses, limit hospitalizations, and obviously limit deaths. And we've known from the very beginning that the way you do that is by protecting those who are truly vulnerable from it. But what's happened now is mass vaccination, vaccinating everyone, has become the total be-all, end-all goal for this. And they will do whatever they need to do to make that happen. So that's a multifaceted approach. Number one, they have to keep doubling down on doom and gloom, whether it's Osterholm saying we're in a Category 5, situation here, or Walensky saying if she has a sensation or a feeling of impending doom, whatever it is. That's number one. Number two, it's forcing people who've been vaccinated to continue to wear masks and stay away from others, because they know darn well that those people, that ever-growing group who've been vaccinated but are still not allowed to go out without wearing a mask, still have to socially distance, those people become the army of enforcers. They become the social justice warriors who are going to shame you or coerce you into getting vaccinated because they're saying, hey, Roy, I've been vaccinated, but I got to keep wearing this darn mask because of you. So they are now, in effect, forming the de facto brown shirts, the group of Karens, the group of vaccinated people who are the clean, who are going to put pressure on the rest of us who have made a personal choice, for the time being at least, not to be vaccinated.
I get blamed for everything else, so you might as well blame the COVID and thing on me, because I got big shoulders, I can handle it of that. But, no, it is. And this is the second point of this, maybe even more damaging or concerning later on in the interview. This is Michael Osterholm again. And if you think your kids are going back in class, or they might be there for a week or two or maybe a month, you think they're going to stay there, ha, ha, ha. Listen to Osterholm very carefully.
In fact, right here in Minnesota, we're now seeing the other aspect of this B117 variant that hasn't been talked much about, and that is the fact that it infects kids very readily. Unlike the previous strains of the virus, we didn't see children under 8th grade get infected often, or they were not frequently very ill. They didn't transmit.
There you go. And he goes on and on to laying out the case for the rest of the interview of how schools are going to be in perpetual lockdown. We might as well put the padlocks permanently, get the dozers out and start plans of demolitioning them all, because even if they may make it back for a couple of days or a week or two or a month, they ain't going to stay there, Dr. Kelly.
Well, I think you're right. And again, this is one of an ongoing series of examples of overwhelming intellectual dishonesty on Osterholm's part, because, as he's saying, we have more kids, quote, testing positive for a number of reasons. First of all, there's no question that as viruses mutate, and we talk about this all the time, and all viruses mutate, and they become weaker and weaker and weaker as they do, but they frequently become more contagious, meaning it's easier to spread, but it's more and more like a common cold. So kids are getting it for that reason. Kids are getting it because we are testing more and more kids. As children attempt to get back to school, back to sporting events, back to being allowed to participate in things, we are forcing these kids to get tested, and therefore we're having more positive cases. Although he says kids didn't used to get severe illness, newsflash, and they still aren't. He's being intellectually dishonest by dangling it out there. They didn't used to get ill, but he doesn't have the follow-up and saying, and thankfully, they continue not to get ill. We have seen no pediatric hospitalizations, no episodes of significant pediatric illness from COVID, and no deaths from COVID-19 that are, as a result of these, quote, new variants. So again, it's this intellectual dishonesty and wanting people to double down because truly their only focus right now, Roy, is on mass vaccination. And they're not going to stop and let us get back to life as we used to know it until that happens.
Well, and even I don't care if they vaccinate us at 147% rate that Hugo Chavez won the election in Venezuela, I think, at one time. But once we do that, we've heard that if you get vaccinated, Lord Fauci says you got to wear 2, 3, 10, 152 masks even after you've been vaccinated, yada yada yada. So I mean, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so we all got the shot. We're all this. Well, they're already setting up the deck chairs of how this is going to work. It's called hiding in plain sight, Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree with you, and I think I've said, all along that although I've always acknowledged that the virus is very real and that there's a certain percentage of the population that can clearly become quite ill from it and or die from it, fortunately that's a very small percentage. But they are using this pandemic, Roy, clearly to drive other agendas. Things like their climate change agenda, arms control, firearms control agenda, those sorts of things. I mean, what better way to decrease the carbon footprint than to convince huge swaths of Americans that it's too dangerous to fly in an airplane, not because of the safety of the aircraft, but because that's a place you'll likely get COVID. How do you keep people off the streets in private cars and limit the amount of fuel consumption? Well, tell people that it's really best, in perpetuity or for the foreseeable future, for them to work from home and not commute to the office. That's how you drive these other agenda items. And frankly, the quickest way to government-controlled health care, which is clearly one of their agendas, is to roll out this passport, this healthcare card that's going to be a huge way to aggregate people's private healthcare information, do it under the guise of a, quote, vaccine passport. Oh, and we'll just, collect a few other bits of data like what you're allergic to and what medications you take and who your insurer is and the next thing you know it, under the guise of a vaccine passport and the desire to get back on an airplane or a cruise ship or travel or whatever it is, Americans give up their civil liberties, turn this information over to the government, and very quickly we are on a downward slope to some version of government-controlled health care.
Vaccine passports, mark my words, you let this thing go, it will not be the United States of America. It will be 50 separate states. Because you will see, in California, I can guarantee if we let Gulag Gavin or whatever, or New York with the, with the cunning COVID Cuomo over there, they'll put walls around there and say, you know what? Show me your papers coming in. This is an emergency. You can't come in unless you have your vaccination passport to come into this state. There will be no free running from one state to the other. They will de facto strip your constitutional rights to freely travel in the United States in its borders.
No, I agree with you. The one thing you can say, the people who remember and were forced to or encouraged to read 1984 back in the day, as people in my generation were, all I can tell you is, Orwell was an optimist. Because we, let me tell you, we truly his looks like a utopia, not a dystopia, compared to what we are currently entering. And I agree with you. I think the ability to move freely is going to go, in the gutter if we in fact go down the path of these vaccine passports. What I think is going to be quite interesting to watch, Roy, are some of these organizations, say universities, for example. Both Rutgers and Cornell have both come out and stated that they are going to be mandating vaccines for kids to return to in-person learning on their campuses, you have to recall, let's remember, these vaccines are experimental. They are not FDA approved. It is against federal law for an employer or any organization to mandate or otherwise coerce you to take an experimental treatment against your will. So as soon as, or if, God forbid, one of these vaccines turns out, say, for example, to have long-lasting impact on fertility, and some university has mandated its students to get this vaccine before they can return, the lawsuits that are, class action lawsuits that are going to be levered against these institutions are going to be epic in nature. And so the thing that I think is protecting us at this point is the fact that the vaccines are not FDA approved, they are experimental, and the idea of forcing a passport on someone for an experimental treatment is just so far beyond the pale. Hopefully there are some, there are corporate attorneys out there saying, no, do not go down this road. It's going to be a very deep hole to dig out from.
Yeah, I mean, there's another tool in the toolbox they conveniently exempted the manufacturers of the vaccine, the researchers, the government from you being able to sue over the vaccine on that. If that isn't cause enough concern for you not to take it, whatever. I mean, you're there to make your choice. But again, you're woke company Coca-Cola or something and saying, well, you can't come work here or come into our building or this, that, and the other unless you have the vaccine. Well, what if something goes wrong? What if like you said, now they got the tools to destroy practically any business that mandated this or just wipe them out through the courts of that, or punitive damages, everything. And then pretty soon, voila, you do have a controlled society because there is no private business left.
Yeah, and as really, I need to say it again, I respect anyone's decision to get a vaccine. That is your decision, made hopefully in conjunction with your healthcare provider, and I respect that. This is an issue, however, of whether or not we can mandate for people to take something that they don't want that is experimental. And the reason I believe that they really are keeping things in place like mandates to wear masks or social distancing, even if you've had a vaccine, is because, as I said earlier, they would like the vaccinated, the clean, to put pressure on others. It's, sort of like when you're in the 5th grade and the teacher says, okay, who threw the spitball? And no one will rat out their friend until she says, okay, no one's getting recess until I find out who threw the spitball. And everyone's very quick then to turn Johnny in because they don't want to be penalized. The same thing with the vaccine. People have been vaccinated. They want their freedoms because they've been vaccinated, and so they are perfectly happy to turn on their neighbor, their family member, their coworker, and put pressure on that person who doesn't want to be vaccinated right now. So the government, I think, is really relying on these brown shirts, relying on the Karens and those people to put pressure on everybody else to try to drive this vaccine initiative. And what's so scary is not only is mass vaccination not necessary, given the 99.9% survival rate from this virus, it's not only not necessary, but it may be extraordinarily harmful. We just don't know enough about these vaccines. We certainly have reason and growing reason to believe that anyone who's already had COVID or had it recently could be at significant risk from getting one of these vaccines, and the data that's coming in does not look good.
Or Johnny realizes that if he rats out Roy in the 5th grade class, the penalty for that is worse than than doing the part of that. But my fifth grade stories will have to wait for another day on that. But no, it is. I mean, and again, we played, and I don't know, Arturo Polinsky, a pastor up in Canada, told they were coming up there into his church, and he told them you get Gestapo to get out, and they turned tail. Same thing with a restaurant up in Vancouver of that. And you're starting to see, what, lack of a better term, civil disobedience, or just standing up for your right to be a free person. And, I don't know if that, but I think we're coming to that line in the sand spot, just from what I'm hearing about Ulsterheim and Ulsterholm and the whole rhetoric that's going on in that. I think we're ever coming closer to that day where that line in the sand, that tipping point, is going to come, and we're going to go one way or the other.
Well, I certainly hope so, and I can tell you from my perspective that pastor up in Canada, his Polish pastor, he's my hero. He's my idol. He renews my faith in mankind, and it's just that the willingness, the guts to push back, to say no, get off my property, and don't come back without a warrant. The ability for people to push back and say, no, I'm making a decision for myself. I've had a very vigorous discussion with some fellow physicians today about how to respond when people ask me out in public and say, well, have you been vaccinated? And truly, the approach I take is that I give them somewhat a taken aback response, nonverbal response, and then I say, I appreciate your concern about my well-being, but my healthcare decisions are private and personal, and they're between me and my healthcare provider, just as yours are. And I don't. We need to help people recalibrate what is in the public domain and what is personal. And the idea that now that all of a sudden this vaccination thing is some kind of badge of honor, that people walk into a cocktail party announcing, I've been vaccinated. I mean, I wouldn't walk into a cocktail party and say, I had my pap smear, I had my colonoscopy. I mean, we just don't come in and announce those things. And so I think we need to bring vaccination status. If you choose to do that, that's terrific. That's your personal decision. But, healthcare autonomy is something that is sacrosanct. It's a civil liberty, and it is not up for public discussion just because Anthony Fauci or Osterholm or Walensky think it should be.
You say it much better than I. That's why I let you roll. Thanks again, Dr. Kelly Victory, for being on. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Roy. Talk soon.
Dr. Kelly Victory on there saying it as only she can say. Yeah, like I said, the whole thing about that. That guy that pastor up in Canada is my hero too, as we explained earlier. Dr. Kelly saw that, and believe it or not, that's not rehearsed. I mean, I just threw it out there, and she ran with it. Of that, we didn't talk about it or anything on that. Flip up number 4, real quick, please. I want to get to that just to kind of put a summation on this. This is why you need to elect. We need to elect more, or a majority, 50% plus one, of government officials, representatives like Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. To quote him on Real America's Voice, on the meme they put up, it's completely unacceptable for either government or the private sector to impose upon you the requirement you should show proof of a vaccine just to simply be able to participate in normal society, Governor Ron DeSantis. And that says it all. You elect a bunch of wussy boys. You elect a bunch of tyrants. You elect a bunch of gulag gavs, or cunning COVID Como, or whomever, or slow Joe Biden, who can barely keep his eyes open. And you're in a heap of trouble, boy. Just what all you got to do is watch the cues hiding. I see it hiding in plain sight. They do it all the time. So they can come back and say, oh, well, we told you about this. Oh, when the lockdown's come in 2 or 3 months or 6 months or 2 weeks, whatever it is, they ratchet down. Oh, well, yeah, we're going to open the schools. No, padlocks on the doors, no more in. They're going to say, well, yeah, you didn't listen to Michael Osterheim, the esteemed epidemiologist on Meet the Press, who said, stage 5 hurricane coming on COVID in 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to close back down the schools. Oh, kids are all going to die of COVID if we don't do this. Yada, yada, yada. You didn't pay attention to that? Oh, yeah, it was out there. They're very smooth. They're very cunning. They have a lot of tools to work with. But the one tool they can't take away from you, unless, as Dr. Kelly Victory says, you sign it away, is the power of the people. Just like Arturo Polinsky, or that mom and boss in Canada that told the health inspectors, Gestapo, no, you ain't coming in here. You got a warrant? If you ain't got a warrant, then the door is that way. Stand out in the sidewalk or go home or do whatever you want, but you ain't coming in here harassing us. It's incredulous of what's going on, but we shall prevail. There's no other choice. We'll be back tomorrow on a Taco Tuesday because I'm sure there will be a lot more fun things to talk about going on that. You know, maybe Armageddon will come and then we'll have something to report about, as they're saying. So until then, tomorrow in 23 hours, see ya!